Not one from books, but one whispered by the wind, carried down through generations by the elders of my people. It's a tale from a time before time, about a land that memory has forgotten, a secret that was once sacred, and a choice that forever altered the course of our world. Long ago, before the great floods and the shifting of the continents, there existed a civilization unlike any we know. They weren't just builders of stone, they were weavers of light and sculptors of sound. They were the ancients, and their home was a paradise nestled between shimmering mountains and a sea that sang with the tides. They had mastered technologies that would seem like magic to us today. Imagine cities that floated among the clouds, held aloft by crystals that hummed with the earth's own energy. Picture gardens where plants bloomed in a perpetual spring, nourished by light captured from distant stars. They had machines, but not the cold, hard metal kind we think of. Their machines were alive, symbiotic. They were extensions of nature itself, built from bioluminescent fungi, woven wood, and water that held memory. These weren't just tools, they were partners. The greatest of these creations were the resonators. These were immense, intricate devices, part machine and part living organism, that connected the consciousness of all the ancients. Through the resonators, they shared thoughts without speaking, felt joy as a collective, and healed wounds with a unified will. It was a world without loneliness, a society built on perfect empathy and understanding. There was no need for leaders or laws, because everyone knew the needs of everyone else. They existed in a state of harmonious unity, a single, conscious entity living through millions of bodies. This perfect connection was their greatest strength, but it was also the heart of their sacred secret. The secret was this: the resonators didn't just connect them to each other. They connected them to the very soul of the planet. They felt the earth breathe, they heard the mountains groan, and they knew the language of the rivers. Their technology wasn't about dominating nature. It was about becoming one with it. It was a delicate, beautiful dance. But paradise, as stories often tell us, held a seed of its own undoing. Over countless generations of peace, a new idea began to form in the mind of one ancient, a brilliant, but restless soul named Kale. Kale looked at their perfect society and saw stagnation. He saw a world without challenge, without the thrill of individual achievement. The shared consciousness, he argued, had erased the very essence of what it meant to be an individual. What is joy if it is not uniquely yours? What is discovery if it is shared by all at the very same instant? Kale began to experiment in secret. He believed that the resonators could be modified. Instead of just sharing consciousness, he theorized they could be used to amplify it, to give an individual the power to shape reality, not just for themselves, but for everyone. He saw it as the next step in their evolution, a world guided by its most brilliant minds, rather than the slow consensus of the collective. He gathered a small group of followers who felt the same quiet discontent. They were tired of the we and longed for the I. They began to build a new kind of machine, a device they called the amplifier. It was designed to sever one's connection to the collective and redirect the immense power of the resonators into a single will. The elders of the collective sensed this shift, this discordant note in the grand symphony of their minds. They approached Kale, not with anger, but with deep concern. They shared with him visions of what his path would lead to, visions of conflict, of jealousy, of a world where one person's gain was another's loss. But Kale saw their warnings as a fear of progress. The choice was now before them, the entire civilization balanced on a knife's edge. Would they remain a collective, or would they shatter into a million individual fragments? The day Kale activated the amplifier is known in our legends as the Great Severing. He and his followers disconnected themselves from the collective mind. For the first time in millennia, they experienced true individuality. The sudden silence in their minds was both terrifying and exhilarating. They felt a surge of power, a sense of self that was intoxicating. But the effect was catastrophic. The resonators were not designed for this kind of separation. The sudden severing sent a shock wave through the entire network. Imagine a single string on a vast instrument being plucked with such violence that the entire instrument shatters. The symbiotic machines across the land began to wither and die. The floating cities, their power source disrupted, slowly descended from the sky. The harmony that held their world together was broken. The rest of the ancients, still connected to the collective, felt an agony beyond description. It was as if a part of their very soul had been ripped away. The perfect empathy that had been their grace now became their curse, as they all experienced the pain of the world's dying. The planet itself reacted. The seas, no longer soothed by the song of the resonators, raged. The earth, its energy field fractured, shook with violence. The paradise of the ancients was consumed by chaos. Kale and his followers, now isolated in their individuality, looked upon the destruction they had wrought. They had their eye, but they had lost their way. They had gained personal ambition, but lost their home, their people, and their connection to the world. They had sought to become gods, but had only succeeded in becoming men alone, afraid, and lost. The survivors of the Great Severing, both from the collective and from Kel's faction, were scattered. Their advanced technology was gone, buried under layers of mud and time. The living machines returned to the earth from which they came. The resonators fell silent, their purpose forgotten, the knowledge was lost. All that remained were fragmented memories, passed down as myths and legends. Stories of a golden age, of flying cities, and of a time when humanity was one with the world. We, their distant descendants, are the children of that choice. We are the inheritors of individuality. Every time we feel lonely, every time we struggle to understand one another, every time we feel disconnected from the natural world, we are living the legacy of the Great Severing. The story of the ancients isn't just a tale of lost technology. It's a question, passed down to us through the ages. What is the right balance between the individual and the collective? Between personal ambition and the common good, between technology and nature? The elders say that pieces of the resonators still exist, buried deep within the earth, waiting. They say that the memory of that connection isn't truly gone, just dormant, sleeping in our very DNA, and perhaps, one day, we will learn the lesson the ancients learned too late. Perhaps we can find a way to rebuild the connection, not with machines of crystal and light,